Wyatt was telling me how incredibly it sounds.
Pretty wild.
Yeah. Well, I guess before we kick everything off, we got Danny Boyd was the first one in tonight, and then John Wilburn, myself, 38 POS Racing, Lars LP 94, Fred 74, Colleen Tebow, Michael Schmidt. He says, "Is it me or is Shane looking a little like a cutie on the right of the thumbnail?" Yeah, Shane's not here tonight. Let's see here. Clayton's Toolbox, Fab Race Mon Repeat, Buick Smith, Mopar Mustangs and Minivans, David James, and Rick Salmon, Iceman 2K10, Levi's Backyard Performance, Dust Devil Garage, Michael Roberts, Val 360 Jimmy, and I think that's it.
So far.
Yeah, it's Wednesday night. If you haven't noticed, Shane is looking a little bit John Wilburn-y, and that's because he's John Wilburn. Shane's not here tonight. It's his off night. So it's myself and John, and I got my son Wyatt here.
Hello.
So we are going to cut it short. We're only going to do it in an hour. I got a smoldering Nerf battle that we got to fight over some territory in the living room to do. So, yeah, I got to do that. So
Bill McKiska sneaks in here, and Wendy's letting us know she's at work. She's hiding out at work watching the live.
Well, that's the best way to work.
That's it,
right? You're actually in two worlds at the same time.
Wendy's getting paid to watch this craziness.
Awesome. Wish I could get paid to watch this. All right. Well, we're ready for some questions. So whatever you got, throw it out there. Yeah, Buick Smith saying Nerf. Yes. Yeah, we're going to blow up the living room. Just me and Wyatt.
Last time it was insane.
Yeah. Old Dad did some flying over the couch, shooting at him at the same time kind of stuff.
And I ran past the part where Dad was camping, and I shot him easily.
Yeah.
While you're reloading.
Danny Wood says no paintball in the house. So.
Yeah, no, not well.
Not yet.
Yeah, it's just my house now, so I can do whatever I want. We want to fling grease at each other or poop. I mean, we can do that. No one's going to care. Well, I'll care if I got to clean it up.
Yeah, Lars is right. I'd say that Wyatt's taking the Nerf turf war.
Yeah, he does a lot better than I do. He can fit behind smaller things.
Damien has a great question there. Has Dallas customized his Nerf gun to be more powerful? Have you souped it up?
No, I haven't souped it up. Matter of fact, I have the 4-shooter.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, they put 4 barrels on top of each other. After you get past the first one, it is like you'll be lucky if you can aim it.
Like with his 4-shooter, like the 2 middle barrels, they're like the most accurate.
Okay.
Yeah, Buick Smith says Buick powered Nerf Gatling gun. Is that what I need?
No, because there's already a Nerf minigun anyway. So
plus, you would know where I'm at when I fired up that killer Buick on there.
Yeah, and I would shoot you on the spot.
Yeah, Buff Del Campo snuck in tonight saying hello all.
Accuracy is key. That is correct, Iceman. You cannot win a fight by missing faster.
Yes, that is true.
I know.
Big facts.
Yeah, the man spitting facts. It says Wyatt. So, all right. Well, actually, I didn't really have anything planned. I have a new shop truck I've been working on. Got myself a little S10 pickup, and I think we talked about it before.
So Colleen's got a good question. At some point tonight, you need to give him an update on the S10 because I think that's a pretty neat project. But Colleen's got a good one here. Pros and cons with vacuum versus mechanical secondaries. Presumably on your 4-barrel.
Okay. Pros for vacuum secondary, where it's a vacuum instead of mechanical. A pro for vacuum secondaries generally, besides Holly. Holly has the power valve, but generally you cannot overcarburate on a vacuum secondary application, because once the secondary air doors come open, they only open up to zero vacuum, right? So they'll balance there at one point where it's zero vacuum, and it will never give the engine any more air than it actually needs. The downside of the vacuum advance is getting it tuned, or not advance. The vacuum secondary is getting it tuned properly, because there is no mechanical linkage between it. So you need to dial in the first primary set of barrels, and then dial in the secondaries after you're done. Mechanical
Typically,
secondary, you still got to dial those in, but it mechanically works the same way every time. The downside to the mechanical secondary is they're generally pretty thirsty compared to a vacuum secondary.
mechanical secondaries were not made for economy. But
No,
with the vacuum secondaries, usually even with the lightest spring, you can't get as instantaneous as you can with
mechanical.
a double pump or a mechanical secondary.
Yeah. Yeah, Michael Schmidt says you need to pull the batteries out of your dad's Nerf gun when he's on this live.
Well, it doesn't run on Nerf. It doesn't run out. It doesn't run on batteries. It runs on air.
Yeah. Let's see here. Clint Street Machines jumped in here, and then Heavens Mopars is in. Look at that, Scott.
I think Colleen is trying to ask about something specific she's working on by backing into it with a general question.
I mean, like,
Let's see. Danny Boyd's asking which generation S10? Second generation. So 95. It's a 94 and newer. So it's actually a 95. The cool thing about it was I saw a little weird looking spot on the frame, and I touched it, and the entire piece fell off. So this baby's rusty. So
Iceman
Rush years
2K10.
after.
I flat don't believe that. I think it depends on your tuning. I really do.
let's see.
That's too general. Any 850 and CFM carburetor and below will be faster in the quarter. I just don't really believe that.
What's that? I don't see which one you're talking about.
It's up there at 807 Iceman. I think it too many variables to make that blanket a statement.
Well, Clayton's Toolbox is saying here, on the old Edelbrock Torker intakes, they had straight runners that took a bit of an abrupt turn close to the port. I hear this actually was a good thing done by design. What are your thoughts? I believe the Torker is a single plane intake manifold for the street. They were meant to be used on the street in like towing applications, right?
My Edelbrock is like that. Has a pretty hard turn by the port. I don't know why. I don't know why it would necessarily be a good thing. I know mine has it. I know what he's
I
talking
can't figure out why it would be a good thing. Generally, you want as straight a runner as possible.
Yeah. There's a lot of things that are done at the factory that are not done in the name of maximum performance. Like probably almost everything done at the factory is not done in the name of maximum performance. So
Right. It's made for longevity.
So a
Longevity
good
and
thing
cost.
is subjective.
Okay, why accept Holly? Holly works a little bit differently with they don't have like a traditional vacuum secondary. I mean, it is the traditional vacuum secondary, but it uses that power valve, the little vacuum module off to the side. And that thing is actually, it's tunable. And all vacuum secondaries are essentially tunable. But it doesn't work like, say, like a Carter AFB or an Edelbrock AVS carb or a Quadrajet or a Thermoquad. It has virtually one set of doors, and it is that power valve just allows it to have fuel come in. And then, but I'm not a big fan of Holley carburetors on the street. They're not very fuel efficient carburetors. Now they had some spread bore Hollies, and I've never tried one of those, so they might be a little bit different.
You know, Colleen follows up on that. It's a conversation to our local speed shop, and they say street with an automatic equals vacuum, drag with a manual equals mechanical. That is way too general. How many people would say street would be a tunnel ram? Well, ask Andy Wood. If you can tune it, it's just fine. And then the plot twist is, guess what intake is on my CRV right from the factory? A tunnel ram. I mean, so there's a lot of generalities that have been around forever that
almost every
people should
EFI
revisit with
application
science.
almost every EFI application is a tunnel ram from the factory.
Yeah.
But so when will we be able to buy new old cars, complete running down the road? I've thought about this for a long time. Like you could literally refurbish a car using quite a few factory parts, and then resell them, and they would fall under older cars emissions requirements, the whole 9 yards. But the problem is like, let's say you completely refurbish a 1988 Crown Victoria. Who's going to want to drive the 1988 Crown Victoria with all new parts on it? Not too many people will be lining up to buy that.
I think with the cost of everything now, I think that more and more people would say, sign me up.
Well, that's why I got that S10.
Yeah.
It falls under that category of lives forever, right?
Yeah. I had to go in a cell phone store today. So you already know what kind of day I've had that I would do such torturous things, right?
Man, did you get a new cell phone?
No, not yet. But I went in there, and I'm going to take a step up here pretty soon. And the salesman is one of these like starch shirt tab collar kind of guys, right? With the loafers and all. He's a nice enough guy. But he's talking about modern stuff like it's a necessity of life. And I said, see that CRV? That's the most modern vehicle I have, and it's 22 years old. So if that tells you how addicted to modern I am, I don't have that sweet tooth for things like a screen on the dash and all that stuff. I just don't care.
Well, I did the same thing today. I took Wyatt to lunch, and we went to this place. It was called like Jason's Deli or something.
Yeah, that perfect.
Yeah, and when I was up there paying the girl, it was like our meal count out to like $21 or something. So I'm paying her, and I hand her cash, and then she's like, "Yeah, if you want, you can get on our app and you can order the food ahead of time." And I looked at her and I said, "I just paid with cash, right?" And she's like, "Yeah." And I said, "Do you think I want to take time with the app?" And she's like, "Okay, never mind. Have fun." And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm not. I don't do modern. I don't do the new society where everything is better, because it's not better. There's an alternative to it. It's called old society, and old society was literally better."
We have a generation of people who can't read a tape measure. You really think they can count paper money? I mean, so that's one reason the app has to be, I reckon.
So, Iceman, is this the question you were talking about?
Yes,
Mark
that would
Campbell,
be
engineer. Any car below 850 CFM will always be faster in the quarter with a vacuum secondary.
Yeah, I just think that's awfully general. It tends to try to create an axiom that gets around any of the science.
I think that's all based on tuning. Because
agree.
It may have been that way back when the Holly had fixed air bleeds and all that stuff. But since all that stuff is no longer fixed and removable, you can make a mechanical secondary carburetor very drivable on the street. They're just not very good at, I guess it'd be rationing fuel. They're very good at wide open throttle. And anything, other than wide open throttle, it's not all that ideal. Let's face it, the mechanical secondary didn't come out about like after the vacuum secondary. The mechanical secondary is what everything was before. When you had a progressive 2-barrel, it was a mechanical secondary carburetor. The reason why they got away from that is because it's not always needed to be in the secondary. So, let's see. Dust Devil Garage says, found out last weekend my 360 was sharing fire between 4 and 6. I'm getting heads resurfaced and new gaskets. Anything else I should do to keep this from happening again? I'm not entirely sure what it means. Was the head warped and it wasn't sealed up between 4 and 6? That's what it sounds like.
Yeah.
It blown head gasket between 4 and 6.
We may get some video on that, but he's being proactive and checking things out, trying to get his car in shape for the season.
Good. I hope that thing actually runs down the track at No Name Nationals.
Iceman here. He says Holly couldn't make it happen back then, but that was before all these swappable air bleeds, etc. Right? Times have changed.
Yeah, I think a lot of the books that were written, like, okay, the Grump Speed Secrets, I think a lot of that stuff is dated material. It was literally had a shelf life of about 3 years before it started becoming dated. And those books are still available. Even Vizart did quite a few of those books. And even that material is going to be dated based on when it came out. Right now, the neat thing is about Vizart stuff is he was working on things so far ahead of everybody else that it might be only just a few years old, but I don't know. Technology is leaps and bounds ahead of what you're reading about, like the piston guided rods and all that stuff everybody was talking about. They've been doing that in NASCAR since the early 2000s, late 90s. Um, one of the most interesting things I've read about here recently was, do you remember the Sterling Marlin race in 1995 where he had the Dr. Gas X pipe, and it was like, what is that car? That sounds so wicked.
That sounds familiar. He's had more than one thing like that over the years.
Right, but see, that I didn't even know about in the 90s. It wasn't until 2024 where I watched a documentary on it from 2000, or that was talking about the 1995 car, but was from 2012 or 2016. And it was a documentary on YouTube about it. All right, so Schweers and Gears says, hey guys, what's your opinion on heat crossovers on performance manifolds for the street? I have an old YM 7546 that's a single plane with a heat crossover. Okay, the heat crossover is very important when you're talking about drivability, especially when it's cold startup. It'll be very drivable within just a few minutes. Now, if you block off the heat crossovers and it doesn't have the opportunity to heat the underside of the carburetor, it will take a while for that thing to, if you haven't noticed, when you have the choke set and the engine's cold, you have to have more fuel for the thing to run properly. Otherwise, it's lean. It's considerably lean. That heat crossover gets rid of that lean point, tipping it back towards much more drivable at operational temperature, right? But I like them. I've plugged off some Buick heads, and the early heads, they have just it's essentially just a plug, and I can just knock an expansion plug in there and then kill the heat crossover. But when I did that, the drivability was horrible right after startup. And it was always lean. And it would take forever for it to warm up. But once I got warm, it was fine. It was just that heat crossover was very important when it was cold, and especially when it was a cool day. Now, if it's not a daily driver and you're just hot rodding it around and you're only taking it out on summer days and nice fall days, that's not a big deal. Leave that heat crossover in there, or leave it plugged off, and everything will probably be fine. And that's just if you're looking for that extra 10, 15 horsepower. Let's see.
I've never really found much redeeming quality to a heat crossover at all. I took the one off the CRV a couple of years ago and have noticed absolutely no difference whatsoever.
Well, that's because it's EFI.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, even carburetor or EFI, they just seem to be pointless.
Yeah, it's much more noticeable with carburetor.
Without a doubt, but still, you start it, let it warm up, and you're fine.
Yeah. Heavens Mopar says, we delivered the 62 Lancer to Jamie at Dead Dodge Garage to the other side of the state on Saturday for Vic at Functional Histories. Picked up some roof structures for Charger and some parts. Okay. Let's see. The smaller the CFM carburetor, the faster throttle response, but they will not outperform bigger carbs. Yeah, but it's the smaller the carburetor CFM in relative size to the engine is the throttle response. But see what it is, the problem is it's going to kill horsepower up top if it's improperly sized carburetor. Like hence the what was it, Thunderjet 289? Isn't that who it was? That did the
Thunderhead 289.
Thunderhead 289, whatever. He put that carburetor off of a lawnmower on his car, right? And I mean, it ran down the road, but it was not a monster by any means. I'm going to tell you that right now. It was pretty meager, I'm sure, taking off. But yeah, you're right. I found the ones with the fastest throttle response is always the mechanical secondary. Mechanical secondary, where you can adjust the squirter size and when the shot comes in, the whole 9 yards. And that's when it seems to be, you can really get it tuned in well, with throttle response. Let's see. Okay, Buick Smith says, Dallas, I found one of my 12-inch 300 ST switch pitch converters. I will send you a pic later on how to tell the switch pitch converters from a regular one. Okay, cool. Fred74 says, are there any AHRA events in the future? This year's just No Name Nationals. That's it. That's the only real AHRA event left. Everything's kind of on the back burner at the moment because I'm going through a divorce. So let's see. Fab Race Mod Repeat, Dallas first gen. I don't even know what this means.
Neither do I.
0 to 3310 750 on my original 351 Windsor, 20 to 23 mile an hour, no overdrive, 310 gear.
No context.
Okay.
No context ever.
Well, it happens when they get strung together, but you don't have the rest of it by the time you get to the follow-up. So I'm sure that went with something earlier.
I'm trying to catch up.
So if you jump down to Buick Smith's question, this is a good one. It's for Wyatt. Michael Roberts has a good tech question. So there's a good one for each of you there. Michael Roberts, it says, what's the seat of the pants difference in your 331 stroker between a cam with a 108 LSA and a 112?
Oh, well, you're definitely going to have a noticeable difference in low end torque with the 112. So your seat of the pants will be pretty happy.
I can tell you what Vizard said. He said that if you are a few degrees too narrow on your lobe separation, no one will know. If you're a few degrees too wide, everyone will know. So there's much more penalty for it being too wide. In fact, 331, I'm assuming 331 Windsor stroker on that being a wedge engine, I can't imagine any application for that need to be 112.
Nothing.
Let's see here. See, JB's little shop saying the Holly 500 works great in my little 2.8. The 2.8, 3.1, 3.4 liter family, the thing that always interested me about those is they're a 60-degree V6. And I think changing the angle on it doesn't necessarily change anything different between a V8 or like a 90-degree V6, except for in the rod angle is different on that, right? Wouldn't it be? No, maybe not. Actually, it can't be.
Not the rod angle within the cylinder.
No, it would actually be the same because it goes in a circle. So I don't know what was the gain of the 60-degree. Is it that you had a shorter runner on the intake manifold, making more torque?
It could be, or it could actually be something in the factory. It could have been something so simple as fitment. Because if you have a 60-degree, wouldn't it fit better in something that's front-wheel drive?
Okay, question for Wyatt. What's your favorite 3 cars or trucks in the world? Favorite 3.
I don't know.
You don't know.
Mm,
You don't have any idea?
no, I'm not really interested in cars, so I don't know. I just joined. I just decided to join this, so I don't even know anything about this.
Well, one of them got you here. One of them got you to the live, so
You like
it
Dad's
should
old
be
Suburban?
fixed.
Yeah, it's pretty good,
I see.
What about you like Dad's race car?
kind of.
Hmm. Did you like
Andy
Dad's
Wood
old car that
listening in
you
from the
were buffing
road.
the paint on? What's that?
Yeah.
Andy Wood listening in from the road. How's it going, sir? There's Robert
Okay,
E.
so
Lee / Dakota. Hello.
Fab Race Mod Repeat saying that a 3310 is a vacuum secondary 750-mile Windsor in the Cyclone averaged 20 to 23 miles per gallon with no overdrive and a 310 gear. There you go.
Finally, some real context.
Oh, there you go. That's the answer. 60-degree V6 balances naturally. Don't require a balance shaft.
I always thought that balance shaft thing was the weirdest thing.
I remember seeing those on the series. What was the Series 2 V6 Buicks? That's the first time I saw
Something
them.
like that, yeah.
And I was like, what in the world? And it was Buick was focused on the wrong thing on that. When they had the odd fire V6 and it literally had 2 cylinders, it would miss and it would shake. People hated it. And it's like, why? 6-cylinder V6? I mean, I would have just left the same because the cranks were stronger that way. And then when they started turbocharging them and then they had the even fire V6 and they split the journals on the cam, once you got them under serious boost, making a lot of horsepower, they'd break the crank because there's no overlap on the crank.
Danny Boyd, you are correct. The balance shaft is just another thing to go wrong.
Yeah.
I have never owned anything with a balance shaft, nor do I want to.
Well, Chris Cox said that we used to sell a ton of those balance shaft overhaul kits for the Buick V6. It's just something in there spinning for no real reason.
I guess it keeps it from destroying itself, so I get it. But man,
Well, it doesn't. They don't destroy themselves anyway. That the 3800 has been around since like it's the engine that time forgot. It literally came out in 1961 as the 225 Fireball V6. So I mean, they don't shake themselves apart. That's not a problem. The thing that kills them.
I like Iceman's comment. They use balance shafts on most 4-cylinders these days, trying to keep them as smooth as possible. Most consumers prefer it. That's because most consumers don't work on them. So I would say that 100 out of 100 consumers who never lift the hood on their own car prefer it.
Yeah, see, Buick Smith here is saying that Jeep guys love the 225 Oddfire, the Buick Dauntless because they lope like a V8 at Odd. Yeah, that's because they're a 300. And the neat thing about that, the 225 V6 is literally the same bore and stroke as the 300 Buick. And when I sent Polito that camshaft, Professor P, that cam from, it actually came from Buick Smith. It was a 350 Buick cam that I had the 300 Buick profile ground on it. And he called me back and he said, dude, you wouldn't believe how big this profile is on this 300. And so he sent me over the factory numbers, and it's like, he said, that's the biggest factory camshaft I've ever seen in a small block. And that was the Buick thing at the time, is the nailheads had big cams in them too. They loped really well.
Makes you wonder about the heads if their cam is that big.
Right, and that's because the head sucked. But, Danny Boyd saying, I remember a buddy having trouble with the balance shaft on the Eagle Talon or something like that 25 plus years ago. I don't know what there really is to go wrong on a balance shaft. Wouldn't it just be 2 bearings?
I don't know. Maybe. I worked on one a long time ago. I want to say it was on one of those. what was the plastic van that GM had, like the Lumina APV or
Yeah,
Silhouette or
that's good.
something? I think it was in one of those.
Hey, what are you doing, buddy? All right. Mopars, Mustangs, and minivans. Working at the machine shop, I've seen a few balance shafts. Seems unnecessary to me, but I understand why it could be needed. It's just to take vibration out of the engine. That's become a big thing. Is what they call. I've said this before. They call it NVH, noise, vibration, and harshness. In the gearhead hot rodder world, noise, vibration, and harshness is a good thing, right? Like camshaft, compression, engine vibrates. Yeah, it's because I got solid motor mounts and I care less with a cam on a 108 LSA. But to the rest of the world, to my neighbor down the street here that literally has never changed his own oil, and he's always like, "Why are you always working on something?" Well, if you were to really do maintenance on your vehicle, you'd be doing the same thing, except for paying somebody else to do it. Let's see. Danny Boyd says my dad used to only check and add oil, battery, water too back in the day. Yeah, and then it's gotten worse. Now they don't even open the hood. Most people don't.
Michael Schmidt, he raises an interesting point. Says balancing question. Some say inline engines don't need balancing. Seems odd. Can anyone explain whether to not or why? Here's the simplest reason I can say someone would say that. I'm sure in your house you've got more than one ceiling fan, and one of them spins like this, and one of them spins like that. I mean, it takes so little. Some people don't care. Some people don't care if an engine's rattling the fillings out of their teeth. Some people don't care if it's self-destructing or not. I mean, you can balance in something you can take as far as you want.
Yeah, Danny Boyd's saying that I think guys have deleted the balance shaft in some engines and run without it. I would see it as just like a loss of horsepower because you're literally it's just a parasitic drag is really what it is, and the only reason it's balancing anything is because its harmonic throws of that balance shaft are opposite of what the engine is. Yeah, see, there isn't really much to them. 38 POS Racing says I have a 4.3 with the balance shaft, took over 300K before it finally wore out.
That's cool. I mean, and some people get tons of miles out of like a 3.7 Dodge engine too.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone's mileage can vary on that. Every extra part you have has an extra chance of failure. So,
Yep. Whenever things get overly complicated, see, that's why, okay, if you've ever looked at a true blue race car, when it gets down to manual steering, manual brakes, you'll ask yourself why. And then you go, because there's a lot less to go wrong, right? It's just so much simpler that you don't have to worry about all the stuff. Even if the engine stops running and it pukes all the rods out the bottom end, you're going to be able to steer and you're going to be able to stop. That's the big ones. So
reliability is a real virtue, and simplicity is a virtue.
let's see. Danny Boyd saying that's an upgrade some people do on the Focus ST for revability. Drop the poundage of the balance shaft.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'm assuming that, like I said, it's just parasitic drag, right? So it would literally eat up horsepower to make that thing just so it doesn't vibrate. Let's see. Scott at Heavens Mopar says is adjusting the idle screws on a carburetor until the motor smooths out good enough. That's all I know how to do. He's being sarcastic, of course. He's like literally rebuilding a 69 Charger out of paper mache. So
I will say when it comes to that,
can make anything out of.
I know, I'm just joking, buddy.
I like to set the timing first, and then I like to get my maximum vacuum. I mean, that's just is where I start. Those two things.
I adjust the idle screws essentially with a vacuum gauge. I don't even do the ear thing anymore. I just do it with the vacuum gauge because it's ideal.
No,
that's where it's peak efficiency at idle.
That ear thing, you'll get within a turn. The vacuum gauge, you'll get within a quarter turn.
Okay, Clayton's Toolbox is asking, what vehicles projects do you have, John? Please tell
Yep.
us about them.
So the last thing I got in my little traveling fleet here is the van. I found my aunt's old van that she bought new in 1985. It'd been gone for a long time, MIA, and there've been reports of it floating around in Botetourt County, Virginia. And I found and bought it. I've not done much to it yet, other than make it, stop, steer, and all that good stuff. But I've driven it everywhere. Taken it to the No Name Nationals a couple of times. It's been to Georgia. It's been to Sykeston. It's going to an hour south of New York here in a few weeks. So that's one of them. I got the Roach Runner, and unfortunately, there was a lot of things hit me right at the same time I got that Roach Runner. And so I've had to put that on the back burner, getting a couple things done, but that's coming back. I got some other stuff too, but there's things I haven't put on YouTube for different reasons, but they're coming.
Dakota's Time In says, I like the vacuum gauge because it makes me feel like a master tuner.
Vacuum gauge is great. I love a vacuum gauge.
Yeah. I like driving with a vacuum gauge, actually. Like over the road, if you're doing a lot of miles, vacuum gauge will save you hundreds of dollars on trips.
Well, I didn't know that.
Yep. When you get older, we'll put one on your bike, okay?
Okay.
All right. Yeah, Nan's van. Nan's van, you've seen it out at No Name Nationals, I'm sure.
That's right.
Yeah. And John did a video of him cleaning or emptying out the shitter was full.
No, it's a cool van. It's going to be my tow rig. I got a transmission from 38 POS Racing. He's in the chat. I got a 46 RE from him. I'm going to be putting that in it, make it a tow vehicle.
I still think Stroker 318 motor would be the ideal.
Oh, no, I agree. No, I agree. That's no doubt.
Yeah. Then we put that, you go, what'd you have? You have some kind of intake manifold for, what is it, the 4-barrel 318 one?
I have a factory 4-barrel 318 intake. I think would be perfect for it.
Yeah, and a quadrajet.
You keep saying the quadrajet. I mean, I know I want to default to my good old Holley's 600 vacuum secondary 4-barrel, but you never know. We might do a quadrajet and try to do a mileage build. It would fit that intake perfectly.
I think I have one for a Mopar. I actually have
goodness.
a Mopar quadrajet off of, I don't know, somebody's wrecker.
Oh, no. I can't curse it like that.
No, dude, it's probably just held together with bubble gum and toilet paper.
The least efficient things that you can use.
Yes. Let's see.
Michael Schmidt says he
even
bought
a
with
single
his
nail would be better than that.
a
What's that?
15-pound chrome
Even a
timing light.
single nail would be better than that.
Yeah. 15-pound chrome timing light. That's good for a half second in the quarter mile. I started buying old automotive tools off of like eBay because I found that the timing lights from yesteryear last longer. The equipment is more accurate when you're talking about like I had a dwell meter that was from the 60s or something, 70s. It even took a flashlight or a camera battery from way back when that you can't even buy now, and converted over to a 9-volt. But the weird thing about it is that it's like literally, it's so simple and it is robust.
My dwell meter's from the 80s. My timing light I bought new in 93, maybe.
Let's see. 38 POS Racing says, was it in the early 70s when you could get a vacuum gauge factory installed? Yeah. You could actually get Chryslers with them.
M&M got some Mopar ball joint sockets. Now, here comes the great part. There were 2 different sizes, Damien. Oh, no.
I mean, like, you need a certain size for almost everything. Batteries, houses, everything.
Here's the best part. Your car from the factory took the small one, and the brakes you got on there take the large ones. There you go.
Whenever I hear small, I think of this.
Buick Smith St. Dallas on the switch pitch converters. I also found that found out that although they are both 12-inch to 300 switch pitch converters, they came behind the V6 have even a higher stall than the regular 12-inch. Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, they're probably pretty loose. And I think that's all done with the movable stator in them.
I picked up the ball joint sockets, the Mopar ball joint sockets I have at a flea market. Long time ago.
I think I need to plug my brain into the internet.
Your brain, no.
Yeah, so I can be smart.
No, you don't. You'll grow up and you'll be smart. You don't need to plug your brain into anything. Plus, it'll get hacked on the internet. Is that what you want? Okay, so Danny Boyd said 1960s, you get a vacuum gauge in a Chevrolet. My uncle used to have old Corvair van. I'm wondering if those came with vacuum gauges.
Iceman, fuel pacer light on the mid-70s Chryslers. Was that a vacuum gauge? Because the idea was to try to get you to drive with the highest vacuum possible to save fuel, right? Was that a vacuum gauge?
I think that's where the light would come on.
Yeah, right.
It's your peak point of vacuum, right?
So Clayton's asking a good question. I wonder if a vacuum gauge would help on a diesel for miles per gallon. I couldn't help but think yes, but not in the same way it does with a carbureted vehicle.
I think on a diesel, I think the easiest way to tell on that is because you got to remember a diesel's running on boost and sometimes 2 or 3 forms of boost.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have a boost gauge on there. But I think a diesel, the best thing to do is somebody come up with a fuel flow meter, right? To where you get it at the ideal fuel flow. Least amount of fuel for your best bang for the buck.
Right. I'm not saying the vacuum gauge would be optimum, but I'm saying I still think you would save on it because it would help you keep your foot out of it, which would keep the duty cycle low on the injectors and all of that. So why not?
Oh, here you go. Danny Boyd saying he saw a 65 Impala SS that had a vacuum gauge. I'm kind of wondering if they were like a knee knocker kind of setup because a lot of the 60s GMs had tacks like that.
I think the biggest diesel I've ever worked on was a Volkswagen Rabbit. Remember those? The
80s. You're talking about the good 80s ones?
Yeah. Those are cool. Wow. I mean, I have a couple buddies that do that all day, work on diesels. Never been my thing.
Huh. And then Danny Boyd saying the 80s Chevys had it, but it was labeled as a fuel economy gauge, I think. I know that on the turbo Buicks, there's the early vacuum or boost gauges for the turbo, because you could get the 3.8 carbureted turbo in anything General Motors offered up to like 1981 or 2. And so like a lot of Monte Carlos, you'd see Monte Carlos with a 3.8 turbo V6 Buick or full-size cars. You could get a Caprice with it. But the thing is that they had a boost gauge, and on one side it would say boost, and the other side it would say economy, so it was essentially a vacuum/boost gauge.
And Schwier's Gears is right, but I'm just going with how the question was framed. Run wide open, just more or less fuel. Yeah, I'm just sitting here thinking, how would you benefit at all? I don't know.
What is a diesel vacuum?
Oh, there's no such. Well, it doesn't really work off vacuum. Works off boost.
I'm just sitting here pondering if there's a way that you could get anything out of that.
No, Iceman, it's like the opposite way around. High vacuum, the light would come on. Right? Low vacuum is when the light would go off. Or yes, held the light off. Yes. I'm sorry, I misread your question.
So it would work kind of like an oil pressure gauge. Oil pressure keeps the light off.
Okay, so 38 POS Racing saying 3 lights for boost indicator on my 78 Buick. Oh, all right. I've seen them with the dial where it says like boost and then it says economy on one side. Huh.
My next project put a vacuum gauge and O2 gauge in my Duster. He likes them for tuning the carb to understand. Yeah.
Especially at part throttle. That's where that O2 sensor comes into play big time.
The meter in the air fuel used to be pretty exotic, but now more and more and more people are doing it. Carbureted vehicles. It's just become a normal thing. I tell you, who finally sold me on the idea of doing it was Andy Wood.
Let's see. Danny Boyd's saying diesels have to pull some vacuum. At idle, they would pull vacuum, I'm sure. But at a certain point, it crosses over to forced atmospheric pressure.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I don't know. That's a hard one to wrap your head around.
No, because the 80s diesels, think of it like a 6.2 diesel. It didn't have a turbo on it. It ran on vacuum just like a gasoline engine, right? And that's how all diesels would have to run up until the point where the turbo makes boost. And then that's what's neat about the diesel is that virtually you can't feed it too much boost. There's no such thing until the crank falls out, you know.
Fabre Smaudry Pete says his uncle's big Windacuda, I'm assuming he's talking about one of the fastback Barracudas, had a factory vacuum gauge. I didn't realize you could get those in that, but okay, that sounds cool.
Yeah, the 6.2 diesel would, and the 6.9 IDI, the Fords, and it was just when they added the turbo.
My next project said his father-in-law's 76 Ford one-ton grain truck with a 390 had a vacuum switch. The light that said low economy, and that thing always had low economy. I'm sure it did.
Yeah.
That sounds like about the most fuel-hoggish vehicle ever.
Oh, well, I grew up driving them suckers when I was young, like about 12, right? And I don't think any of them would run probably over 50 miles an hour.
Let me
They'd
tell
have
you.
two-speed rear end, and they'd have like the most anemic. They had big blocks in them, and they were like the most anemic big block because it made all of its power at like 2,800.
Let me tell you, the FE in 390 did not stand for fuel economy. Those
No.
they were not known to be efficient engines.
Well, I don't know if I told you this before, but I had a 66 Mercury Cyclone GT. It had 390 in it. And that sucker with an automatic and 3 gears would get 6 to 8 miles of the gallon. It was not fuel efficient at all.
So 38 is saying that the restriction or the intake doesn't change. Yeah. It'd be hard to get anything out of that then.
Right. Yeah. You're just adding more fuel or taking fuel away.
Speed buggy. Oh, goodness. Buick Smith's got a question there.
Yeah, Buick Smith is asking, have you ever watched Speed Buggy? I don't know. Maybe I probably tried to get you to watch it, but you were like, this is terrible.
I love Speed Buggy.
Speed Buggy is like, that's what he would talk. That's when he would talk. That's what he would say. He was a buggy that could talk. Hey, Speed.
Oh, I've seen it. It's the eye placement. It was weird.
Eye placement.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I tried running them through all those old 60s and 70s and early 80s cartoons way back in the day when he was like 3 or 4, and I think what ended all that was the Dukes of Hazzard. And he walked in and was like, Dad, I'm tired of watching this show. It's terrible. And I'm like, son, you and I are both cut from a different cloth. So
Most TV.
Let's see. My next project says that old Ford had balls. It was like a grain hauling Mustang, but only up to about 50 miles an hour, super low gears. Yeah, some of them had 2-speed rear ends. And what I was getting at is they're not turds by any means. It's just made it's meant to make all its power at like 2,800 and operate at 2,800 RPM all day long. They're not good on fuel, but they got the job done. Let's see, Mohawk 62, just like the big box U-Haul truck, the low economy light stayed on the whole trip. So
They didn't care. The customer was paying for fuel.
At least you could see.
Most TV is terrible. Yeah, I don't even watch TV now.
I'll take your word for it. I don't.
Let's see. Iceman 2K10 says, what did those old Dodge 40-footer motorbikes with the 440s get for miles per gallon? Like 4?
You mean like motorhomes? Motorhomes, I assume? Oh, yeah, it was just horrible.
Oh, yeah, he says here motorhomes. Okay.
Yeah. Terrible.
Oh, Michael Schmidt's asking, Wyatt, go-karts or video games?
If I had to be truly honest, I would go-karts.
He's not tall enough to drive the ones at the Family Fun Center yet.
Yeah. I'm almost tall enough, though.
Yeah, but what about the mini bike in the garage? Have you ridden that yet?
No, something about it. I don't like way too fast things. It feels very unsafe. What? I have my own reasons to feel like it's unsafe.
Let's see. The only VW bug I know that can talk is Herbie. Oh, Herbie can't talk. That's because that's Damien from Mopar's Mustangs and Minivans. He's way too young for this cartoon still. Yeah, Speed Buggy and the Chopper Gang. Some bad trees in the house. Let's see. Dizzy Izzy saying carried hundreds of 7-ton asphalt loads with the 306. You know, the funniest thing is I saw a meme the other day on Facebook that said, when the last LS engine dies, a 306 will take it to the junkyard. And it's like,
see that
is 100% true.
You know what? I like that. One time I showed a house for sale. It was up on top of a mountain, had a goat path to get to it. You're like, how does anybody ever live here, right? It's a foreclosure. A door was missing on the end of the house, and leaves had blown in up against a wall, made this huge ramp about 5 feet high of leaves, right? And I said, What is that? And I swept the leaves away, and there was a 306 sitting under the leaves. And you could tell it just been getting rained in and everything else. I said, you know what? I bet you that I could start that thing. Right? And if this was in the YouTube days,
yeah, get a battery, and some starting fluid, and it would fire right off. Yeah, and see what happened is the guy that was living there before, he pretty much disowned his children, but he still kept the 306. First Responder Garage says, if more vacuum gets you more miles per gallon and diesel is more efficient than a gas, with no vacuum, doesn't more vacuum pull more fuel from the carb? Well, it does in a carburetor application, right?
But the whole point of the vacuum gauge was just to get you to consume less fuel.
The vacuum gauge is just...
I get what the point is, though, but you're using one symptom to affect another. It's not that direct.
The vacuum gauge is my friend. I mean, I use that thing to tune every carburetor, especially at an idle. When you get it dialed in correctly at an idle, man, there ain't nothing like it. They're smooth. They sip fuel at an idle. I mean, it's great. But you know, if you're not using a vacuum gauge to set the idle air mixture, you're doing something wrong, because it is the most ideal way to efficiently dial in the carburetor at idle. So let's see. And Buick Smith is asking you, why Mario Kart or Sonic?
Mario Kart.
Let's see. I've owned, Danny Boyd saying he's owned 2 4.9 EFIs and 1 carb 240. Colleen's saying that I got to make a shirt for Wyatt that says Lil Rotter. Oh. Yeah, wacky racers.
Dick Dasher reminds me of Dick Dastardly Rich Rusnick.
Let's see. John Dallas. I found a 360 crank with no rod journal holes. I didn't know they had them.
Sounds like a good one to make a Honda sized journal.
Yeah, and then have your holes drilled. You got to have them so to lubricate. So I don't know what that must.
Well, when he says no rod, I think he just means. I think he means the space going through the journal, not the oil holes.
Oh, you mean like where it's not gun drilled?
I would assume, but I don't know. I don't know.
Let's see. Michael Schmidt says 306. I used to bracket drag race at Hudson 6. My enemy with my Plymouth Flathead 6. That damn Hudson chased me down and blew by me.
What does that mean?
He was racing him on the street, and that car was way faster.
Circle like this?
Yeah, that's it. See, Wyatt was never into the drag racing thing, and I took him to cruising the coast this year, and they had the Southeast Gassers there. And Wyatt he's seen the Southeast Gassers before when he was like 3, maybe 4. And then this time he like paid attention, and we got there, and it was like, there's this 47 Plymouth, 48 Plymouth called the Pink Panther. It's running like a small block in it. And of course, a stick, right? And we walk in there and walking up to the fence to go watch the races. And that Plymouth, he just dumps the clutch at like $7,000. And it just stands up and starts bouncing all the way down the track every time he's grabbing the gear. And Wyatt was like, "This is so awesome, Dad." I'm like, "Yeah, now you're hooked." Let's see. First responder garage. Answer: more vacuum means the mixture is allowing the engine to run smoother, hence the higher reading. Correct. Yep. There's no slowing of the reciprocating mass. That's correct. And so when you have the idle and the dial, or like the idle mixture screw and then the idle screw set on the throttle correctly, they will idle smooth as glass. Oh, Levi's Backyard Performance says, what's the best video game you ever played? I love me some video games.
My favorite, honestly, Mario Wonder, but there's that one level in the special world, and we got really mad about it because it was like going way too fast. It was going over the speed limit, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. It was really hard. It was frustrating me to death. I think we had 99 lives when we got there and killed them all off. I had to go get more lives, come back and play the thing.
And remember, I had to open the shop and I had to buy all of them.
Yeah. Oh, man. Okay, so Schreers and Gears says, I'm nearing the point of painting my engine bay on my 40 Chevy. What do you guys think? Body color, gloss gray, black, or white? Well, okay. I know how GMs were done. Was generally it was body color was in the engine bay, but the older I get, the more I learn. And I guess Chrysler's was a big one where they were painted black under the hood. But I absolutely hate black under the hood. I would think white would be cool, but man, would it be hard to keep clean. But you sure as heck would be able to see a lot in that engine bay. I don't know. That's where just one little light in the engine bay and all white, and that sucker you should be able to work on the side of the road pretty easy. Let's see. Mopar's Mustang and Minivans didn't know there was Mario Wonder. He's going to look that game up.
It's a really good game. It's probably worth your money. honestly.
First responder garage, Dallas. When is the little man going to get into dirt go-karts? I don't know. I don't know what. As soon as I get him riding this mini bike the first time, the fart pipe mini bike for the monkey bike race, he's probably going to be hooked on them. Okay, Levi's Backyard Performance says that's what racing needs as a whole. Wicked paint jobs, cool characters, and race them autographs, less commercial stuff. Yeah, I would agree with that. Before I took my vacation at the beginning of the year, I figured out how to do an $86 paint job using the Oops cart at our local paint supply store. And I just bought up everything off the Oops cart for $86, and then I was going to paint it just like they did in the '60s, where that's where the flash paint jobs and all the weird looking stuff came from. Was they would buy up the paint off the Oops cart, and then just if they can only cover, a 3 foot by 3 foot square on the trunk lid, well, might as well put some lettering in there, or some freak dots, or the never ending line, or anything like.
Here's one that'll cause your head to pop off of your body and roll down the hallway. Schweers and Gears there. This thing is currently a 97 Ford Pacific Green from a Mustang, but I finally found someone willing to help me paint it for less than $20,000. Single stage porch gloss gray. Here I come. Oh my gosh. Less than 20,000 paint job. I cannot even fathom.
Neither can I.
Yeah, I'm all about doing my own stuff. Like, and I've said it on here before. Paint serves one real purpose. Okay, everybody gets wrapped around the axle like it's multiple different colors, or And John asked me. I remember he came by and did a video on my '63 Buick Special, and he was like, "Hey, where are you going to paint this?" And I said, "It's got paint on it." And he said, "Yeah, it looks pretty beat." And I'm like, "Yeah, but it's keeping the rust off. That's the purpose of the paint, right?"
Dakota says, haven't even spent $20,000 my entire life. No, first responder, $20,000 doesn't sound right. Half of that's just paying all that crazy cost that it costs to get paint now. It's nuts.
Yeah, the EPA price.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's what you're dealing with is the EPA price. But you know what? The EPA doesn't regulate tractor paint. Go to Tractor Supply, buy as much paint as you want. It's cheap, right? If you have to, I mean, okay, the Oops cart. I got a can of, it was 1 pint. And I took it off of there because it was just too cool to not have. All right. It was 1 pint of paint. It was a 1992 Corvette color. It's like this weird looking aqua blue stuff, right? It's a single stage paint, and it's $400 for that 1 pint. But they gooned it up when they first mixed it. So I paid $86, bought the whole cart because they were going to throw it all away eventually. And I just went in there and saved them a bunch of time because they didn't even have to pay somebody to like go through and sort the paints. I'm like, I picked up 4 cans. They were blue. It was all base coat, clear coat paint. And I looked at them. I'm like, oh, well, there's a little bit of this, a little bit of this, a little bit of this. And then I just took the lid off them all and poured them into one. And the guy looked at me like, that's not going to work. And I said, why? It's all base coat, clear coat. These are all the base coats. Why wouldn't it work?
So,
and he's like, oh, I don't know. Do you know what color that is? And I said, yeah, it's blue. Right.
so getting away from crazy paint, there's a good paint video on 318 Will Run's channel. If you like budget paint, he used a roller. He used a roller to paint the hood on his Dodge van, his 84. And he tinted the paint, right, at home, used a roller, used some stuff that keeps the brush marks out of it, and you'd be surprised how good it looks on video. I haven't seen it in person. He may be bringing it to Sykeston, but I'm telling you, it looks surprisingly good. And he did it for probably $80 or less. Exactly. Dakota says it looked dang good. Yeah, it did. I'm telling you.
Huh.
And as stupid as the price is for paint now, yeah.
I'm telling you, oops cart the whole thing. I'm going to oops cart the world.
I don't think that would be necessary.
No, not really. Let's see. Andy's saying that Casper isn't that fast, but has soul. Folks love it. Yeah, that's what
Yeah.
I was going for. When I finally finished this '63 Buick Superstocker, um, it's going to be interesting because one, there isn't anything else like it in the Buick community at all. But two, the whole idea is for it to look like Grandpa's race car that you inherited, and you literally just went out, put oil in it, and poured gas, and charged the battery, and drove it out of the garage, and you went racing. And that was like kind of the whole idea. But I'm leaving the old beat uh, gold paint on the sides with scrapes and stuff. And I'm going to try to fill some of them in. Some of them are getting lettering over them, so it's not as bad, or a mural or something. But I wanted to have that character. It was an abandoned car that sat for like 20 something years, and kids jumped on it. So
why would somebody do that? That's so weird.
well, that's just what bad kids do, or good kids, depending on what they are. I mean, they had enough class to jump on a '63 Buick Special.
Well, I'm to travel to Canada. I'm not going to take any more of this American crap.
There are degenerate kids that just like to destroy stuff. There's degenerate adults who like to do that too.
Yeah, Buick Smith wants a Oops Cart shirt.
Okay, can you stop saying oops carts?
Yeah,
Like,
Oops Cart, Oops Cart, Oops Cart. Okay, Danny Boyd said cut and polish is what makes a paint job anyway. I don't know. This is like the first one that I'm ever going to paint myself. Well, actually, technically, this would be the second one. But I'm not even painting the whole car, and I'm just going to do whatever I can afford or however it looks. So, yeah, Dakota said an old race car look is awesome. Yeah, that's exactly what I wanted. I want it to look like it was Grandpa gave you this, and you inherited it, and you drove it out of the garage, and it had a lifetime of getting hit by the lawnmower, and then bike scrapes down the side, and no one cares about it. It just got abused. So, hey, well, Michael Schmidt sent $10 and said, Wyatt, get your dad a burrito.
okay.
Thanks, Michael Schmidt. Yeah, I'll take Wyatt out to get him a burrito, and then he can share it with me. How's that?
Okay. Definitely not going to give you 70% of the burrito.
Casper's going to look a whole lot different when you clear coat it.
Let's see. Heavens Mopar is saying they wanted $1,000 a gallon for the toxic orange color when it came out. So I used the Subaru color, very similar, with a quarter of the price. Still turned out great. Gosh, $1,000 for a gallon of paint. Hey, so did I tell you that the gallon of paint I got for the base for the '63 Buick that I went and got? It had on the Oops cart. Yeah, it had an entire gallon of premixed paint that was 2007 Chrysler white that was used on minivans. I'm like, perfect. But it was a whole gallon of already premixed. So, I mean, that's technically only like, I don't know what.
I hear red cost more for the simple reason what you have to use in it to get the pigment.
The tint, yeah.
Yeah, makes red cost more.
Yeah, Clint's saying don't forget the horchata too. So we're good too, though.
Oh, that's what it's called. That's what it's called. I forgot.
Well, folks, like I said at the beginning, we were only going to do this for an hour, and I stuck around for an hour and 10 minutes. But and that went by fast, didn't it, John?
Yeah, it's been fun.
Yeah, I appreciate John doing this tonight. I mean, it was kind of like an impromptu. And I'm slackerish. I've been slacking. I could have put this together a few days ago, but I didn't. Yeah, so we're cutting a little bit short.
Pop this in here right before we go.
What's that?
I'm going to put that link in there real quick before we roll out. That is for Friday night's live. We're doing a No Name Nationals 101. So for all the new folks who have yet to attend the No Name Nationals, this will be the perfect place to get information about what we do, all the stuff, cars, camping, tech classes, all of that stuff. So new folks who are thinking about going to the No Name Nationals, or if you've already registered and have not yet been, or if you're in the No Name 500 and the OGs, you guys are certainly welcome too. That'll be the place to be on Friday for that.
All right. All right. Well, thanks very much, guys, for popping in for an hour, and I appreciate John for doing this for an hour, and for Wyatt for sticking around for an hour. Delaying his Nerf war. So we're gonna go get Nerf warred up. So we'll catch you guys next Wednesday when I think Professor P is back.
Professor P should be back Wednesday.
Yeah, and we'll have a regular 2-hour thrash session in the tech world. But otherwise, I appreciate y'all for stopping by for tonight. Then, so thanks a lot. We'll see you next week.
Been fun.
Bye.